I'm Brittany Lewis, a reporter here with Forbes. Joining me now is Greg Brew, senior analyst with the Eurasia Group. Gregory, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me back, Brittany.
In a stunning turn of events over the weekend, the Assad regime has toppled in Syria after rebels took control of Damascus. This is a crucial moment in an over a decade-long civil war in the country. You and I talked last week after a rebel group took control of Aleppo, one of the largest cities in the country. So talk to us about what happened over the weekend. How did the Assad regime, which has had control of the country for over 50 years, collapse so quickly?
Well, it needs to be said, it needs to be emphasized that this happened with really no warning. No one really anticipated that Assad would fall this quickly. I mean, just last week, his forces were falling back in the north and east of the country. It looked likely that he was going to try to hold on to Damascus or the areas where his regime had historically enjoyed support in the western parts of the country. But that didn't happen. Instead, the Syrian army, Assad's base of support, just melted away. There was really no resistance in any areas that had previously supported him. His position collapsed in a matter of days. There was actually very little fighting. The rebels were able to advance rapidly across territory and faced very little opposition. In most areas, they were welcomed by communities that had either been oppressed by the Assad regime or had given up support for the government. So the speed with which Assad's position collapsed was hinted at last week, but became very clear over the weekend. The rebels were able to enter Damascus. Assad has reportedly fled to Russia. His government collapsed in a matter of days.
So let's first look at Assad. As you noted, he and his family has reportedly fled to Russia. What happens to them next and their legacy?
Well, the Assad family, Bashar and his father Hafez, had ruled Syria for over 50 years through essentially what was a military dictatorship. They controlled the army, a repressive apparatus that was brutal, imprisoned thousands, tortured people, really just a terrible regime that was able to hold on to power through authoritarian means. They controlled the military, sections of the economy. The support for the Assad regime had largely come from the Alawite community, a Shia Muslim community within Syria that had looked to the army and the Assad family for protection, really, against the rest of the Syrian community. But it was clear over the last few years that even the Alawites had ceased to support Assad. It was clear that the government had become extremely corrupt, had become weak, was really only holding on to power thanks to help from Iran and Russia. So Assad's flight from Syria, it is reported that he is in Russia. He is in Moscow. He has sought asylum there. Whether he remains in Russia or remains safe and sound in Russia is something of an open question. But it does mark the end of a brutal chapter in Syrian history and suggests a period of transition.